their education.
WAM's Convergence Council reiterates the importance.
Finance ministers and central bank governors of the West African Monetary Union kick against the unilateral renaming of the CFA franc as ECHO in 2020 by the chairman of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the West African Economic and Monetary Union.
That's one of the key ways we can create economic opportunities for them. It's the foundation for everything they can do with their life.
Stakeholders take further steps to fine-tune the process of actualizing a friendlier educational framework for persons with disabilities. Sports Minister pledges reward for outstanding Nigerian athletes. A lovely evening to you and welcome to Network News and the Network Service of the NTA. I'm Ian Ray John, reaching you live from the Abuja studio. We will be joining Higino John Adams in Lagos, while Jenny Bassi is standing by in Port Harcourt. And now the news. President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration will do everything within its power towards addressing the socio-economic pressure inhibiting young girls in Nigeria from either enrolling in schools or completing their education. The president, while inaugurating the new head office building of the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs in Abuja, described the situation as worrisome and counterproductive. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has the report.
Conceived in 2006 as National Children's Library and Resource Center and converted to the headquarters of the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs in 2013, work on the magnificent cylindrical edifice of 6 floors was only executed in the last 1 year in furtherance of the Buhari presidency's focus on completing abandoned projects. Women in Nigeria now have a conducive environment for effective articulation of policies towards addressing their needs, as well as mainstreaming their rights, privileges, and concerns alongside children and persons with disabilities in all strata of national development. Addressing invited guests comprising women leaders and other interest groups, President Muhammadu Buhari said his administration is committed to sustaining efforts at not only ending child marriage, but also increasing access to quality all-round education, as well as enhancing the retention of the girl child in schools.
The high-level number of young girls who are out of schools or unable to complete school due to socio-economic pressure is disturbing and must be addressed. It is our collective duty to ensure that mothers of today and tomorrow are educated, encouraged, and empowered. Our quest is to ensure that concerns of women, children, and other vulnerable students are given prominence and ultimately addressed.
While commending the Minister of Women Affairs, Pauline Tallen, and her predecessors for the good work they have done and continue to do, the President is particularly happy with the Ministry's collaborative efforts at reducing incidents of human trafficking and maternal mortality.
I enjoin the Ministry to continue to champion and coordinate all matters relating to the plight of Nigerian women and the most vulnerable students. I assure you of my continued support and determination to see that the ministry deliver on this mandate.
There were goodwill messages by UNICEF, ministers, as well as children's representatives.
I believe that in commissioning of the new Ministry of Women's Affairs buildings is merely a start of a decade of advancements of human rights, and particularly the rights of women and children.
As a child, I'm here to advocate for an improved protection, development, and care of all children and youth in Nigeria, to prepare us to be future leaders of our dear country.
Minister of Women Affairs Pauline Tallen had earlier appreciated President Muhammadu Buhari for recognizing the role of women in nation building and supporting the completion of the head office complex of the ministry.
Supporting women is supporting the nation. God allowed you to do this because He is taking you to the next level to unfold great things that will change the history of this country.
First Lady Aisha Muhammadu Buhari was represented at the epoch-making event by a presidential aide and former Minister of Women Affairs, Dr. Haju Sani. In Abuja, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
In other news, the Nasarawa state government has expressed formal appreciation to President Muhammadu Buhari for approving the establishment of the Nigeria Police Mobile Training School in the state, describing it as critical towards enhancing the desired security, stability and development. Governor Abdullahi Sulik, who was in the State House to deliver the message on behalf of the state, also used the opportunity to brief the president on the security situation in the home of solid minerals.
Training school is going to bring a lot of development to the area and is actually going to be able to stop most of the kidnappings around that particular spot and most of the problems that we have continued to see, especially at that particular spot. So that is something not only good for Nasarawa State, but the entire country, because that is the main route that people from Benue, Taraba, Cross River, Enugu, and the rest of them all follow through that road actually to come to Abuja. So for the establishment of such an institution there, we have to be very grateful to Mr. President for approving the siting of that school. As I passed there this morning, work has already started. We are very grateful to God Almighty that most of the skirmishes, most of the issues of kidnapping, banditry, armed robbery along the ways have been reduced significantly.
Governor Sule describes the recently held joint security dialogue between Nasarawa and Benue states as thought-provoking and reassuring.
The representatives of the chief and the representatives of the Miati Allah, the Fulanis who were there, and everyone actually embraced the outcome of the meeting and all that. Now, coming back specifically to what you have mentioned about having a regional police, no, we strongly believe in Nasarawa that we should start with community police, which is what we already have, and so far, so good for us.
And on business, finance ministers and central bank governors of the West African Monetary Union (WAMS) have condemned the decision by the chairman of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the West African Economic and Monetary Union, Alassane Ouattara, to unilaterally rename the CFA franc as ECO by 2020. Chimobi Water Niger reports that they made this position known in Abuja after an extraordinary meeting on the ECOWAS single currency chaired by the Minister of Economy and Finance of the Federal Republic of Guinea, Mamadi Kamara.
Sometime in December 2019, the media space was greeted with news of the pronouncement by 8 member nations of the French-speaking part of ECOWAS on the adoption and subsequent change of their currency name from CFA francs to ECO by the year 2020. Now, this decision formed the basis of a discourse at this extraordinary meeting of the Ministers of Finance and the Governors of Central Banks of the West African Monetary Zone on the ECOWAS single currency program. Now, the meeting, among other things, condemned the action, stating that it is not in line with the decisions of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of ECOWAS for the adoption of the ECO as the name of an independent single currency.
WAM's Convergence Council reiterates the importance for all ECOWAS member countries to adhere to the decisions of the ECOWAS Authority Heads of States and Government towards the implementation of the revised roadmap of the ECOWAS Single Currency Program.
The WAM's Convergence Council, in a communique, recommends that an extraordinary summit of the Authority of Heads of States and Government of the WAM's member states be convened soon to discuss the matter and other related issues. In Abuja, I'm Chimobi Walter Naji, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari has sent the name of Dr. Kingsley Isitwa Obiora to the Senate for confirmation as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. In a letter to President of the Senate, Ahmad Ibrahim Lawan, President Buhari said the nomination was in accordance with the provision of Section 8, subsection 1, 2 of the Central Bank of Nigeria Establishment Act 2007. Dr. Obiora, upon confirmation by the Senate, replaces Dr. Joseph Unana, who retires on February 2, 2020. Dr. Obiora holds a bachelor's degree in economics and statistics from the University of Benin, a master's in economics from the University of Ibadan, and a doctorate in monetary and international economics, also from the University of Ibadan. He's currently an alternate executive director in the International Monetary Fund, IMF, in Washington, D.C., United States of America. President Muhammadu Buhari will depart Abuja on Friday for London to participate in the inaugural UK-Africa Investment Summit holding on Monday, January 20, 2020. In a statement, the host, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, said the event is expected to bring together African leaders, international business chief executives and heads of international organizations to create new partnerships that will deliver more investments and jobs to the benefit of people and businesses in African countries and the United Kingdom. Apart from highlighting new perspectives on UK-Africa Partnership for Prosperity, issues of sustainable finance and infrastructure, trade and investment, future African growth sectors, and clean energy and climate are expected to dominate presentations and discussions during the summit. With the expected takeoff of the African Continental Free Trade Area in mid-2020, the London Investment Summit will provide Nigeria with the opportunity to project itself as a leading investment destination for new industries. In addition, the summit will deepen Nigeria-United Kingdom investment ties post-Brexit, given that Africa currently represents just 2% of British trade activity, with Nigeria accounting for only 10% of that total. The Nigerian delegation to the investment meeting will further showcase what the federal government has done through policies and legislations to improve the investment and business climate in the country. While in the United Kingdom, the President Buhari will hold a meeting with the head of Commonwealth, Prince Charles, in Glasgow and Scotland. The President and his delegation will also have bilateral meetings with Prime Minister Johnson, as well as heads of multilateral organizations. President Buhari will be accompanied to the summit by Governors Yahaya Bello of Kogi, Muhammad Inuwa Yahaya of Gombe, and Okezie Ikpeazu of Abia State. Also on the presidential entourage are the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey Onyema, Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Otumba Niyi Adebayo, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, the National Security Advisor, NSA, Major General Babagana Mogano, retired, and the Director General, National Intelligence Agency, NRA, Ambassador Ahmed Rufai Abubakar. President Buhari is expected back in Abuja next Thursday. And still on business, the 7 tax components of the Finance Act are designed to bring succor to the low class of the society and enhance growth of micro, small and medium enterprises in the country. Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, pointed this out when she inaugurated the board of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, in Abuja this Thursday. Leah Katung Babatunde reports.
The VAT rate from 5% to 7.5%. This new increase will take effect from the 1st of February 2020. The bill also has made a provision for threshold. So there's a threshold of 25 million, that is to say companies, small businesses that have turnover of under 25 million do not have to register for payment of VAT.
Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning Zainab Ahmed setting the record straight. She was speaking against the backdrop of expectations before the new board of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS. 5 cardinal principles are expected to be achieved through recent tax reform initiatives that are tied to the Strategic Revenue Growth Initiative Plan. They include enhancing revenue to GDP ratio, harmonized tax registry, data mining and vital statistics, as well as enhancing tax disputes, among others. The minister charged the board to be key drivers of President Muhammadu Buhari's tax reform agenda, with a view to lifting 100 million people out of poverty in the next 10 years. Chairman of the board, Mohammed Nami, outlines the cardinal pillars of the FRS in the coming days to include rebuilding the agency's institutional framework, robust collaboration with stakeholders, building a taxpayer-centric institution and data-centric institution.
We are going to collaborate with key stakeholders to ensure that we do not just generate revenue that will hit our target, but to surpass it.
We in the National Assembly are solidly behind him. We will be working with him closely and also doing everything to improve the revenue generation drive of the government vis-a-vis the Ministry of Finance and the Federal Inland Revenue Service.
The task ahead is enormous, but stakeholders here are optimistic it is surmountable. In Abuja, Leah Katunbabatunde, NTA News.
Moving on, the Ministry of Petroleum Resources says it is resolved to improve relationship with ordinary Nigerians in 2020 for greater impact. Minister of State Petroleum Resources, Temipre Silva, says this can only be done with the passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill this year to tackle what he called stagnation in the industry. Lydia Sampson reports on salient points from an interface between the minister and journalists in Abuja.
Temipre Silva is not new to the operations of the Nigeria's oil and gas industry, the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, and the Niger Delta region. He's determined to bring experience gathered to bear to take the oil and gas industry to the next level. He's optimistic that with the support of the media, developing a robust oil and gas value chain in Nigeria is attainable.
Counting on the current harmony between the executive and the legislative arms of government, we are optimistic that both the Petroleum Industry Governance Administration and Host Communities Bill on the one hand and the Petroleum Industry Fiscal Bill on the other hand will be passed within the first anniversary of this administration.
For Temipre Silva, conducting bid rounds for final investment decisions on major capital projects is only feasible with the PIB in place.
The midstream and downstream sectors will particularly open enormous opportunities to local investors and consequently create massive job opportunities in the country.
The minister also reiterated commitment to improve surveillance to mitigate crude oil theft, as well as increase product supply to the underserved areas. In Abuja, Lydia Sampson, NTA News.
Now time to take our first commercial break. More reports when we return. Glad to have you back. Nigeria has reiterated her call for global peace, security, and the development of humanity. At a briefing, Minister of Foreign Affairs Jeffrey Onyema informed the diplomatic community that Nigeria believes that diplomacy and high level of decorum are the viable options for resolution of disputes. This is coming at a time when the United Nations is calling for de-escalation of tension between the United States and Iran. Usman Aliyu reports.
With a moderately large network of diplomatic missions in more than 100 countries, Nigeria has significant influence in Africa and in various multilateral fora. This briefing by Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs is all about reminding the diplomatic community about the country's foreign policy objectives, her interests and her stand on some unfolding events in the world. Nigeria says her support to the United Nations on global peace still stands, saying diplomacy is the option for any dispute rather than the use of force. Nigeria also assures the diplomats of her efforts on improving internal security, fighting terrorism, as well as opening up opportunities for relations on economic growth and development.
We are also victims of the catastrophic effect of climate change and are therefore fully engaged with global climate action. Lake Chad, which was a source of livelihood for almost 30 million people, has shrunk by about 90%. And a possible solution, of course, to that real catastrophe would be to recharge it from the Ubangi River, which flows from the Central African Republic through the two Congos into the Atlantic.
Looking at the vision of Africa on the project Silencing the Gun in 2063, the Foreign Affairs Minister called on the United Nations to enforce reforms to include at least 3 African countries on Security Council. In Abuja, Usman Aliu, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the federal government of Nigeria has signed a seat agreement with the International Center for Migration Policy Development to enable it operate with greater efficiency in the country. Here's Onyengiye Fineface with details of the signing.
Signing of this seat agreement marks the hallmark of a negotiation which started in 2015 between the federal government of Nigeria and the International Center for Migration Policy Development, ICMPD.
They have done a lot coordinating with all the 5 different agencies established by the federal government of Nigeria for the migration management, and a lot has been achieved. I cannot say enough for what they have done in Libya, repatriating a large number, a good number of, what do you call it, of irregular migrants from Libya to Nigeria.
Today's signing agreement is instrumental in bringing Nigeria, the EU and its partners closer, and in validating also a partnership that has been there for many years.
The seat agreement is significant in renewing and further strengthening ICMPD's support for Nigeria in providing beneficial management of migration and movement, with focus on research, migration dialogue, and capacity building.
For us, it means that it will be easier to work in Nigeria, to recruit staff, to have access to colleagues which in Nigeria without having the question, who is this organization? We can say we have a seat agreement. It gives a certain standing and status for the organization, which will help us to expand our work here.
ICMPD will also consolidate on its operations and activities within the West African sub-region as a result of this agreement. In Abuja, Onyengiye Fineface, NTA News.
And on human rights, debates on rights of persons living with disabilities have raged for long, but translating outcomes of such discussions into concrete action for implementation have remained a challenge. On the occasion of the ECOWAS Human Rights Day in Abuja, stakeholders took a step further to fine-tune a process of actualizing a more friendly educational framework for this class of persons. Kevin Ebonuaye has details.
What the forum is seeking is a strategy that will translate policy to action in a creative but opportunity-laden framework for deploying formal and vocational education policies as a means for engaging persons with disabilities, IDPs and returnees to be part of development plan.
We should continue to conscientize Nigerian citizenry about the importance of this segment of the society that seems to be neglected as it were.
If you look at the contextual issues around crisis in most of our member states, returnees are finding it difficult to access education. That's one of the key ways we can create economic opportunities for them. It's the foundation for everything they can do with their life.
ECOWAS, Center for Democracy and Development, and other partners are hopeful that when these new strategies are adopted, most of the impediments to an all-inclusive educational system will be eliminated. In Abuja, Kelvin Ewonwaye, NTA News.
Let's now join Hingino in Lagos for more reports from that axis. Hello, Hingino. Over to you now.
Good evening, Iyere, and a warm welcome to Lagos. The federal government will no longer allow illegal miners sabotage the nation's economy with their nefarious activities. Minister of Mines and Steel Development Olamilekan Adigbite, during an interactive session with journalists in Lagos, said the ministry will introduce a policy before the end of the first quarter to mitigate the act. Abolade Salami completes the report.
The downstream mining sector before now had suffered a neglect, thereby creating room for illegal miners to extort the nation's natural resources and export them in their raw forms. to change the narrative and revamp the sector for economic gains as directed by President Muhammadu Buhari. The ministry, with the use of data and investment in exploration, is set to de-risk the sector for foreign investors' participation. Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Olamilekun Adegbite, said, with the Sagilola Gold Project in Osun State, Nigeria will start exporting gold by first quarter of 2021.
We've got to a point now that almost everybody in the mining industry all over the world are aware that Nigeria has minerals. Yeah, we have minerals. But the foreign investors are shy of the risk involved. What are we doing to de-risk the sector? Nigerian government is invested in exploration.
On the resuscitation of Abuja Steel Company, he reaffirmed the federal government resolve to pursue the completion of the project through the $1.46 billion fund to be provided by the Russian government and Afrexim Bank.
President Muhammadu Buhari said, we can resuscitate Abuja without spending the revenue that we don't have. But what's most important, we are looking at a 2.5 year gap for Nigeria to begin to produce steel.
He is optimistic that the steel company will industrialize Nigeria and create more than 10,000 jobs if it becomes operational. In Lagos, Abolade Salami, NTA News.
Now let's look into the financial sector. Financial experts are optimistic that with prompt release of budget allocation and timely completion of capital projects, the January to December budget implementation cycle will positively impact the nation's economy. Amaka has details.
Signing of the 10.594 trillion naira 2020 budget of sustaining growth and job creation in December 2019 by President Muhammadu Buhari is seen as a move that broke the jinx of not meeting the stipulated January to December budget implementation cycle.
This year, with a budget passed, we expect that government will be able to release capital expenditure provisions in the budget promptly.
Analysts are of the view that this positive momentum should be sustained to foster economic growth.
So we're better off not to launch 50 projects that get half completed or we can't finish the appropriations. We're better off to launch 20 or 25 projects where the appropriations come in a timely fashion, that the contractors involved are doing their work, that there's outcomes that are measured and they get completed on time.
With the largest allocation to works and housing sectors, analysts say the signing of the 2020 Finance Bill along other initiatives will create avenues to fund the 2020 budget.
Fortunately for the government, we are witnessing an oil price windfall, and I hope we will make optimum use of that windfall. So for the government, they've gotten what we call a tailwind that is actually pushing them forward in terms of implementing the budget.
Nigeria is said to be the largest potential market in the world. This, analysts say, makes it pertinent to redouble investment opportunities in year 2020. In Lagos, Amaka O, NTA News.
One of Nigeria's leading telecommunications company, MTN, is at it again. This time, the company has launched its Turn It Up project in Lagos. It is aimed at empowering Nigerians to actualize their dreams. Annie Daniels has details.
Since inception about 20 years ago, has introduced several products and initiatives aimed at making life comfortable for its customers. Not resting on its hours, the company has again added to its kitty the Turn It Up initiative. This initiative, management of MTN says, will open up the eyes and minds of its target audience to the inherent talents in them, how to judiciously use them, thereby translating to a long-lasting, successful life.
Everyone deserves the benefit of a modern connected life, and we want to be the company that leads people to that bold new digital world. So we want to partner, it's a partnership, to support people with the tools we have and the platforms we have, to be able to turn up that passion that they have.
Today we cover almost every part of Nigeria on 2G, but going forward 100% of Nigeria would be covered on 3G. What it does is that it impacts the speed, the quality of service, and also the way we are going on net and looking at new services coming in.
It's not about traveling out of the country. It's not about risking your life going to Libya because you're trying to get away from stuff and enter frying pan to fire. But instead, sitting down, listening, going within, and saying, this is what I want. And MTN is saying, we will give you the platform, we will give you connectivity, we will give you data so you can shine your light.
And for the new year 2020, the company says all steps are aimed at getting better, bigger and wider.
That's why we need to invite everyone in Nigeria to use our platform to lift it up and to turn it up.
MTN says there is more within, so turn it up everywhere you go. In Lagos, Annie Daniels, NTA News.
That's it from Lagos. Next.
Welcome back. The federal government, through the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, has signed a memorandum of understanding with a private tech company to close the gap in digital literacy and skills among Nigerians. Minister of Communications, while signing the document, reiterated the need to increase broadband penetration, which he says stands at about 38% at the moment, in order to address the issues that are frustrating the digitization process.
Broadband penetration is key to our economy today. If you look at the report of ITU, the same with World Economics, including World Bank, that 10% of broadband penetration could increase your GDP by almost 3.5%. So with 38%, let's try to improve our broadband penetration to be around maybe 70% in the next few years. In the MOU, part of the objectives is to create a pool of Nigerians with digital skills, and that can be validated through globally recognized certification. So this is a deliberate effort that I think is very strategic, and today's meeting and the signing is very historic indeed.
Joseph Johnson reports that Pantami also noted that the ministry is working with relevant institutions to bridge the gap between the academia and the industry. Moving on, 2 decades of unbroken democracy in Nigeria was dissected at the 17th edition of the Daily Trust Dialogue, with specific focus on its strengths and weaknesses to promote democratic opportunities embedded in the next decades. Emmanuel Ayimiro reports that renowned politicians across the country graced the occasion to set the agenda.
The media, as the watchdog of the society, plays the role of educating, enlightening, promoting and advancing democratic principles. Daily Trust in this regards is determined to see that democracy creates opportunities for Nigerian citizens.
I hope we have another 20 years and more of lively democratic politics in our country.
Former Vice President Namadi Sambo and other politicians who have served in various capacities noted that progress has been made despite the series of challenges.
The transfer of power from a ruling party to an opposition party in 2015 remains historic as a demonstration of democratic ideals in Nigeria.
The advent of social media has given power to citizen commentators to hold leaders more accountable. It's an indication of strength in 20 years of Nigeria's democracy.
Other areas of concerns include women and youth marginalization in politics, poverty, insecurity, and weak civil service.
We have a strong civil service. It's difficult to actually support a democratic government.
The deepening of other factors, like the economic well-being of the citizen, is a necessary enabler of democratic consolidation.
Participants at the Daily Trust Dialogue also want democracy to be able to enhance citizens' living standards, promote national integration, and unite coming generations. Emmanuel Ayimiro, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari has congratulated the first interim chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Chief Abdulkarim Adebisi Akonde, on his 81st birthday, wishing him longer years, good health and more strength to keep serving the nation. The president commended the consistent virtues of selflessness and sacrifice often projected by the former governor of Osun State, Chief Abdulkarim Adebisi Akonde, towards upholding the philosophy of the great nationalist and former premier of Western region, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, in advocating free education, healthcare and entrepreneurship. The president believes Chief Akande's rich experience in public service and politics will go a long way in moving the nation forward through wise counsels. President Buhari prays for better days ahead for the party stalwart. President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, has felicitated with the former governor of Osun State, Chief Bisi Akonde, over his blessings of a healthy and fulfilled life on the occasion of his 81st birthday. In a statement, Chief Bisi Akonde records in public life and as the first interim chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC, has been adjudged blameless. While praying for more impactful life for the elder statesman, the senator enjoined the younger generations of the nation to emulate his sterling qualities in the task of building a united, peaceful and progressive nation. Meanwhile, the All Progressives Congress has also joined in celebrating the 81st birthday of its first interim national chairman and former governor of Osun State, Chief Adebisi Akande. The party, in a statement by its National Publicity Secretary, Larry Issa Onilu, recognizes the efforts of Chief Akande alongside other founding fathers in the formation of the APC and in entrenching progressive politics in the country. The APC family praise Almighty God to grant him good health, long life and wisdom as he continues to contribute to the growth of APC and the country. Now time to join Jenny Bassey in our Port Harcourt Center for more reports.
Thank you, Ire, and welcome to Port Harcourt. Following the directive from the federal government, Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has inaugurated the State Ease of Doing Business Council to protect the investment and business environment of the state. Ogedi Nyekwere reports that the council will be chaired by the Deputy Governor Ipalibo Banigo.
The membership of the Council on the Ease of Doing Business is drawn from the public and private sectors to ensure all sectors are accommodated in the drive to attract investors and enhance business opportunities in the state. The Council is critical to the economic development of the state.
We do sincerely apologize for the lack of audio from our Port Harcourt Network Center. Moving on with the news now. Key players and development partners in the housing sector are deliberating on more productive ways of addressing the housing needs of Nigerians. Joseph Johnson reports that ongoing dialogues at the Sensitization Forum organized by the Ministry of Works and Housing are exploring opportunities and forging possible collaborations.
This sensitization forum couldn't have come at a better time in view of the diverse challenges associated with urban population growth and the deficit in housing in the country at the moment. The focus here exposes these stakeholders to opportunities and appropriate intervention on the challenges.
I call on all present to deliberate on more innovative ways of repositioning the housing and urban development sector for the benefit of every citizen. My expectation is that the outcomes of this session will chart a more progressive path for sustainable development that is more responsive to the need of all.
Nigeria as a country and as a nation contributes heavily to this program, Shelter Africa, UN Habitat, United Nations, Economic Commission for Africa, and etc. But most of the time, you contribute without having the drop of the dividend. So now, they are looking at a holistic approach, an integrated approach to move forward.
It will help in policy formulation. It will help in identifying problems, and also it will help in making recommendation of solutions. But I dare say that's not the end of discussion. The end of discussion will be in implementing and then taking stock and being able to show by this time next year where we have moved from where we were.
As the dialogues continue, there are hopes that the resolution from this forum would translate to evident results that impact the housing and urban development sector and citizens alike. Joseph Johnson, NTA News.
Guests on NTA's current affairs program, Moment for Thought, are advocating developmental journalism and building a stronger Nigeria. They frown at unethical practice such as fake news that does not add value to the profession.
Today, anybody holding a telephone set, handset, can broadcast information to millions of people. There is beauty in that, there is danger in that.
Everybody seems able to jump on the bandwagon. But then, my people say you don't burn down a house because there's a rat in it. How do you catch the rat? And catching the rat is largely the business of regular television.
The program comes up tonight at midnight on the network service of the NTA. Many thanks for staying. Let's now talk sports. Sports Minister pledges reward for outstanding Nigerian athletes.